thanks to everyone for coming out to our group author reading. This reading is brought to you by Strong Women, Strange Worlds, which is a group of authors supporting authors. Our mission is to elevate the voices of women and non-binary authors of science fiction, fantasy, and horror through events like our bi-monthly virtual quick read sessions. You can find out more about Strong Women, Strange Worlds in the handout we provided in the chat and by visiting our website, a link to which will be added to the chat, which is strongwomenstrangeworlds.weebly.com. I'd also like to take a moment to thank those who have made a tip jar donation. Thank you. We appreciate you so much. I'm your host today, Penelope Flynn, and you can find out more about me in the provided handout as well. Please note that recording of this session by the audience is not allowed, and recording of electronic communications, including Zoom meetings and webinars, without permission is illegal. Today we'll be featuring 6 authors: Kathleen Palm, Diana Morgan, Lorens Rhoads, L. Briar, S.J. Lee, and Melissa Olthoff. Each author will have 8 minutes to read. Ready? Here we go. Our first reader is Kathleen Palm. Kathleen Palm is a little light, a little dark, and a lot weird. She loves scary movies and books and eating chocolate cake. She lives in a sadly not haunted house in Indiana where she resists the urge to run through the killer-infested cornfields and writes creepy books for kids. Kathleen, take it away.
A little setup from what I'll be reading. Will is home for spring break with his dad, his older sister, Abby, his little brother, TJ, and his gran, and he hates how everything reminds him of his mom and that she's gone. And so when he goes to bed one night, he's relieved to find that the glow-in-the-dark star his mom put on his ceiling is gone. He pulls his blankets over his head and drifts into the blackness. Tip, tap, scrape. Will opens his eyes and slaps the blankets away from his face. The green glow from his clock, the only light, shines. 11:11. Make a wish. The voice in his head is Mom's, and he almost does make a wish. Then he remembers she's not there to tell. He must have fallen asleep, and he should still be asleep. He would be, except he heard something. Across the room, the knobs on his dresser stare, reflecting the light like evil green eyes. To his left, his desk hunches in the corner. He did hear something, though, didn't he? TJ? Silence. Of course it's not TJ. He hasn't been back in Will's room since Mom. They used to hang out, drawing and chatting and laughing, but something changed when they lost her. Tip. Will waits, listening. Someone in his room. Tap, scrape. Someone who doesn't want him to know they're there. Will sits up. Abby, I don't have your stupid... But no one is there. Only shadows and dusty corners and faded laughter. With a groan, Will falls back. There must be mice or a star? Confusion descends on Will like an alien invasion. A little plastic star glows from its spot on the ceiling. The star that Gran couldn't find. The star that Will doesn't want. He props himself up on his elbows. Maybe he's dreaming. Maybe Gran did find it. Maybe. It doesn't matter. Will climbs to his feet and jumps on his bed, sweeping his hand through the air until he hits the star from its perch. It falls onto his blanket with a soft plop. He grabs it, the point stabbing at his palm. Bouncing on his mattress, he turns it over in his hand. Dumb plastic star. It shouldn't be here. Last month, Ember gave him the star at recess. It was weird and awkward. She told him he needed it, even though she didn't know him, and it made him smile until 10 days ago. He tossed it across his room. It's better if it just got lost. He falls back into bed, punching his pillow into shape and yanking the covers over his head. He squeezes his eyes shut, forcing his breath to calm so he can sleep, so he can fall into the dark. Tip, tap, scrape. No, he mutters. It's just mice. It's the wind, something. And he pulls the blanket tighter because it's not the star. That's impossible. Only the sound continues. It gets louder. He flips the blanket off his face. The star lurks directly above him. It can't be. No one could have put it there without him knowing. Will climbs to his feet, balancing on the mattress. So you moved by yourself. The star sits in its spot of shadow, glowing with a faint green light, silent, motionless. Will sighs in frustration and jumps. Plastic star in hand, he leaps to the floor, gazing around his room, points jab at his hand as he shuffles to the closet, opens the door, throws the star in, and shuts it in. Backing away, Will stumbles against the end of his bed. The closet door doesn't move. The star doesn't creep out from underneath. Will checks the corners of his room, but no one is there. Of course there isn't. I'm dreaming. Will slides onto his bed, never lifting his gaze from the closet. He backs up to the headboard that taps against the wall, a sound that makes him jump. I'm dreaming. He tucks his feet under the blankets and pulls his pillow up behind him, then settles back. The headboard taps again, but the closet door doesn't move. Dreaming. Will shakes his head and sinks into bed, glancing up at the empty ceiling. Tip, tap. The star creeps into place with a scrape. He curls his fingers around the blanket. It can't be there, but it is waiting. To eat him? To attack with laser beams? Without looking away, he gets up slowly, quietly. He tenses, ready to swipe the star free from the ceiling. He jumps, grabs it, then waits. For the star to fight, for it to burn or explode or something, but it doesn't. Whatever. Will heads for his closet, then turns to push his window open, lifts the screen, and tosses the star into the cold night. It falls into the bushes with a quiet rustle. Will leans out the window, letting the air carry away the weirdness. He can't help but look up at the stars, the real ones. He would stand here and listen to Mom talk about the constellations and planets, look through his telescope at the moon, and dream of other worlds and flying saucers. The memories crowd and yell. The bushes quiver and crunch. Then a wail erupts from the shrubs. He presses his hands to his ears as the shriek gets louder and louder. With a boom, a light shoots up. The star. It spins and twists and stops, as if it embeds itself into the sky. The edges glow as if the stars gather around it. The wall shakes. No, the world shakes. And not one of his family knocks on his door or yells down the hall. The plastic star hovers in the sky. Then it spins around and around until it's not a star but a glowing spot. The sky cracks, blackness crawling over the light and over the world until the star becomes a void. He shuts the screen, which unravels with a hiss. Will struggles to close the window, but he can't. Dreaming. He has to be dreaming. The wall crumbles, pieces of it flying away. Will steps back, but the floor breaks under his feet. Dark creeps up through the holes, wrapping around his feet and legs and arms, and pulls him into the swirling void. Then silence. He tumbles through a tunnel made of pulsing colors, around and up and down like an otherworldly water slide made from a plastic star from another dimension. Or maybe not a slide, but a wormhole. His voice echoes, the word coming and going around him. Black fog seeps in, slinking around his feet and ankles and wrists with cold. He stops, held in place by misty fingers. Go away! A harsh voice mingles with the black. Suspended in the tunnel, Will twists and turns, trying to see who lingers in the wormhole with him. Who's there? Where am I? Go away! I would love to. Go away! You go away. I got sucked into this place. Will fights against the foggy bonds. Let me go. Go where? Home. Though he doesn't really want to be there. A groan slinks through the tunnel. The black mist releases Will's arms and legs and retreats. The wormhole or whatever it is spins, the walls becoming lines of light. Then it stops and Will falls. There's no wind, no sounds, no sights. Just nothing. His feet hit the ground or floor or whatever. Will stands, hands out, ready to fend off any alien attackers. A great expanse of gray spreads out around him. The inside of a spaceship? A really boring planet? But more than his surrounding, he's gray. His skin and shorts and shirt. What? Another one. The voice is rough, angry, a terrible voice. Body tense, Will searches for a way out, a place to go. Nowhere isn't going to let you go yet. Nowhere? Fear settles in Will's stomach. His hope that he'll wake up disintegrates with each word uttered by this unseen person. Alien? As much as he wanted that stupid plastic star to stay lost, he wishes for it to return. Right now, he wishes for it to suck him back into the tunnel and spit him out at home. Wherever nowhere is, he doesn't want to be here.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for that, Kathy. That was amazingly scary. I mean, especially if you consider, young kids alone home and that creepy sound in your room. Yeah, I get it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. All right, moving on. Our second reader tonight is Diana Morgan. Diana writes science fiction and fantasy featuring strong women, found family, and fantastic worlds. She grew up in small town Missouri, watching Quantum Leap, Power Rangers, and Star Wars. When she's not writing, she's catching up on her favorite TV shows, reading comics, and sharing her love of all things geeky online. Diana, over to you.
Thank you. This is a scene from book 2 of my space opera series. In it, 2 of the characters have been captured and taken to a colony that's isolated from the rest of the universe. The doctor character has ended up in a village of people that really don't have any knowledge of the outside world and are very low tech. So this is a scene from his time with them. As he finished his tea, Jacob wondered where Livia was now. Had she noticed his absence? Had Dr. Koval? He had no idea if the doctor would care that he disappeared. He hadn't even asked for an assistant, even though he'd seemed grateful for one. He was worried more about Livia. There wasn't much he could do to help her, but now she'd be alone. She'd die in that lab, never knowing what happened to him. Keep yourself alive. That was what she told him. Those were her last words, and that's what he'd done. It wasn't perfect, but the situation with Henry in the village was a hell of a lot better than what Koval's cold, sterile lab and Zeus's constant threat had been. He could only hope she'd understand his choice and not blame him for abandoning her. Here, he could do some good. It was far from perfect, but it was something. He had to go with that for now. Henry had been amazing. Jacob didn't have much time between patients, but every time he stepped out of the infirmary for a break, Henry was busy. Talking with people, helping repair a roof, or fixing equipment. People trusted him, cared about him. Right now, as Jacob stood leaning against the wall of the infirmary, Henry was in the town center chasing a group of kids around, playing with them like he was everyone's best friend. It made him think of James and his chest hurt. He didn't want to stop watching, but he wasn't ready to face that scenario yet. Luckily, a distraction came in the form of Liza walking up with another cup of tea. He accepted it gratefully and let himself relax for a second. Liza stayed with him, watching Henry and the kids. They love it when he comes here, she commented. Jacob nodded. He didn't want to pry behind Henry's back, but he had so many questions. Everyone seems to love him here. Do men from the soldiers ever come down here? Liza shook her head. Only when they want something. Henry's different. He shouldn't be up there. He was supposed to be here, to stay with us, but his father... She stopped. The same way Henry did when anyone mentioned his father. Well, he's special, that's all. Henry's not a soldier. Liza shook her head and looked at the ground. We don't talk about it. It's okay. I know there's some rule about his father. I'm sorry. He must have been a good person. Not a lot of people remember him anymore, Liza said. Jacob thought that would be the end when Liza didn't continue. He changed the subject to something he could do something about. Where is everyone? I can see a few more patients today. Probably headed to the annex. They'll be bringing everything in from the fields to sort and then make the evening meal for the soldiers. Then bring dinner down here for the village. You should stay here. Henry will be along in a little bit. Jacob shrugged. He was tired, but he felt bad doing nothing when everyone else was still working. He could at least finish organizing the clinic. He went back inside the small building. The medications had been organized and put into the cabinets. There was a tray of tools that needed to be cleaned and sterilized. They had an autoclave of all things. It was an ancient and loud machine. Jacob had never seen one in person. It was one more new thing to learn. He started sorting the tools and loading them into the machine the way Liza had shown him. Before the purge, he'd never handled tools like these, never cleaned his equipment. He wondered if doctors, where he came from, even remembered all the work that went into keeping a clean surgery before things were automated. Everything was done for him on Terra. It was automatic. They had machines that did everything, and no one thought twice. They took it for granted. He had to learn from scratch, along with everyone else, once they were away from Terra, and no more robotic lines were there to take everything through chemical cleans and radiation. They were using steam and hot water like heathens. He almost had the machine loaded when he heard yelling outside. He turned so fast he hit the tray of equipment he'd just pulled out of the machine, sending tools scattering across the floor. He cursed. They'd have to be sterilized again. He quickly slipped them back into the tray and ran for the door to see what was happening. Henry was running alongside a cart heading toward the infirmary. The cart stopped, and two people jumped out of the back before unloading a third, older man. The man's hand was wrapped in bloody claws and clutched tightly to his chest. "Doc, we need help." Jacob moved to them immediately and reached for the man's hand. "What happened?" They set the injured man down and supported him by his arms. "The blade broke while we were changing it. Dropped right on Mel's hand, sliced clean through." As Jacob slowly moved the bloody cloth from the man's hand, he saw what they meant. 3 of the man's fingers had been severed. "Get him inside. We need to stop the bleeding." Henry and the other men carried Mel into the infirmary. The third person thrust a metal can at Jacob. "Don't forget these, Doc." Jacob looked at the tin. It contained a dark liquid. The smell was acrid and strong. It reminded him of the airfields when the ships were taking off, the pungent smell of fuel. Something floated on top of the liquid. "It's his fingers. We put them in kerosene." You put them in what?" "Kerosene, to kill the germs." Why?" Jacob stammered. Who in the universe would think kerosene would protect severed flesh? He supposed it didn't matter. He had no clue if he could reattach them with the meager tools at hand. "We wanted to protect them so you could sew them back on." "So you put them in kerosene?" "Yeah, you can save them, right?" Jacob shied. The villagers were doing their best. He turned to the infirmary, hoping he could do the best for them. And that's all I have.
Penelope, you're muted.
I was just saying that I thought it we're still going because I was wondering why they were using kerosene. Are we going to get to why we're using kerosene? And now they're doing their best, but I wanted to know what. All right. Thank you very much, Diana. That was really interesting. Now I'm intrigued and wonderful, that you brought that to us, and we're hopefully looking for a lot more from you. Thank you. Okay, now we're moving to our third reader, and our third reader is Lorens Rhoads. Lorens Rhoads is the author of a space opera trilogy and a dark urban fantasy duet about a succubus and her angel. Her short stories have appeared in Best New Horror, Strange California, Black Cat Tales, and much more. Unsafe Words is the first full-length collection of her short fiction. So here we go. Lorens, take us to your strange worlds.
Thank you. I'm going to read from a story called In the Pines. Haley felt herself vanishing into her math homework. The numbers were as concrete as the desk in front of her, brought to life by the soft, warm glow of the desk lamp gilding her math book. Haley was desperate to sink into the problems, solve them, move on. So different than real life. Eventually, she even tuned out the music playing on her phone, something her friend Kat had suggested to help her keep calm. It took Haley a while to surface from working the final problem. Gradually, she became aware of something scratching against her window pane. The snowstorm was bad tonight, 4 inches of snow predicted, maybe more. Haley hoped the weather woman was wrong. She hoped the worst of the storm would pass them by. The last thing she wanted was a snow day, forced to stay home with her weeping mother and shouting father, She'd much rather be at school, where work might at least take her mind off of things. The storm scratched more insistently at her window, dragging her away from the final math problem again. Sighing, Haley tugged an earbud from one ear. Her room faced Magnolia Street. The old oak tree in the front yard remembered the Civil War. Maybe the wind was enough to make its twigs scratch at her window. When she twisted in her desk chair, the shadow outside the window startled her. Amidst the swirling flakes of snow, the shadow raised a hand again to tap on the window glass. Haley almost called her Dad. As the sound rose in her throat, she realized she didn't want him here in her cozy room, stomping and shouting and waving and watching her as if she was going to disappear. The shadow put its face close to the glass. The desk lamp's glow reflected from the ice crystals in Miria's hair, like diamonds in her black curls. Haley jumped up to open the window to let her sister in. In her haste, the earbuds cord snagged on the desk lamp. The lamp toppled over to crash against her math homework. Shaken loose in its socket, the bulb went dark. Again, Haley almost shouted. Again, she stopped herself. She didn't want to set her mother off on another crying jag. She reached out to turn the window's lock, but the jamb had swollen in the cold. Although she yanked on it, the window wouldn't open. "You're going to have to push," she said, sure that her voice was too soft for Miria to hear over the storm. Haley didn't want their dad to overhear. Until she made sure her sister was okay, she didn't want her parents to intrude. She was desperate for a moment with Miria all to herself before the world crashed in. She wanted a world without TV cameras and police lights. Miria put her hands flat against the wooden frame and shoved as Haley heaved. The window popped open abruptly. Haley stumbled backward, collided with the bed, and sat down hard. Although Miria waited outside, the snow didn't. It flew into the room, melting as it fell against Haley's face. "What are you waiting for?" Haley gasped, struggling off the bed. "A personal invitation?" That was something their dad said. She grimaced. "Come in and close that window before we get in trouble." Miria slithered in. She moved in a weird, boneless way, stretching one leg down until her toes touched the carpeted floor, then sliding the other leg in after it, and then drawing her torso in last. Instead of the purple Converse high tops that Miria always wore, she had on a pair of black leather boots with sharply pointed toes and even sharper heels. Haley asked, "Where did you get those boots, Miria?" "In the pines." Her sister's throaty voice was almost unfamiliar. Haley finally untangled her feet from the comforter. She reached over to turn on the floor lamp standing beside the bed. Her sister wore a tiny, shimmery dress, barely longer than a bath towel. What Haley had taken for snow crystals on the fabric were actually little glass beads, black on black. The dress made her sister look older than 14. Haley would have sworn Miria was wearing makeup, too, Bruce purple shadow, and a lipstick that gave her mouth a bluish tinge. "Where did you get that dress?" Haley asked. "In the pines." "Is that a store?" Haley didn't know it, but she'd never been very interested in shopping and girly things. She hadn't thought Miria was either. "Where have you been?" Haley demanded. "Mom and Dad have been sick with worry. The cops have been here I don't know how many times. They drove all over town, putting up posters and handing out flyers. They've even been on the news." Miria stared at her, but didn't answer. The icy wind whistled through her room. Miria made no attempt to shut the window behind her. Haley wanted to reach past her sister to close the window, but something held her back, kept her standing in the circle of light thrown by the floor lamp. "Where did you sleep last night?" Haley whispered. "In the pines," Miria said. "In the pines, where the sun never shines." "Dressed like that?" Haley asked. "I shivered when the cold wind blew." Haley stared at her sister. In the back of her mind, she could almost hear a song that echoed the things that Miria said. Maybe the bruises around Miria's eyes weren't makeup. Maybe Miria's lips really had gone blue. Her parents were just downstairs watching TV and waiting for news about Miria. Haley knew she could call them. Dad would clomp up the stairs and shout at Miria, and Mom would hang in the doorway and start crying again. Whatever happened next, Haley knew it would be awful. The doorbell rang downstairs. Before anyone could move to answer it, someone pounded on the door. It was the police. That's what the police did whenever they thought they had a lead about her sister. "My baby!" their mother wailed downstairs. Their father yelled for Haley to come down. "You coming?" Haley asked. Miria shook her head and held out her hand. There was dirt under her broken fingernails. The cold wind howled through Haley's room, and both of them shivered. And I'm going to be giving away a copy of Unsafe Words tonight, so make sure you enter the giveaway. Thank you.
Wow. I am such a vampire aficionado, and that was lovely. We all know the signs. She comes, she asks to be let in. We're like, oh no. How wonderful. Thank you so much. The mood was just intense. And the parents downstairs, and we know exactly what's going on. And now we want to know what happens next. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lauren. This is great. Fantastic. Thank you. Now we're moving to our fourth reader, who is L. Briar. Now, author L. Briar writes fantasy and science fiction with healthy helpings of humor. She's a 2024 Sidewise Award winner, author of the Uncommon Universe comedy sci-fi series, and her latest short story, The Devil's Music, will be published by Wordfire Press on February 3rd, 2026. All right, let's take it away, Elle Briar.
Sure, so I have to follow that. Beautiful job, Lauren. I'm going to take a very different take. We're going into a comedy here, and we're going to jump into Act 4 of Spaceship Shenanigans. So, Act 4, The Gut Shot. CSO Report. Rotation 25, Cycle 11, Orbit 70. Ship status? Stolen. Storage contains? Empty. Storage disposed. 1 slizzard assassin, Miss Honey. CSO summary. Mission? Steaming pile of senior shit. Transit? Who knows? Notes. The CSO storage is empty due to a slizzard assassin venting the entire ship into Planet Junior's upper atmosphere. The Helios and the crew have been stolen by a murderous psycho, and I can't do anything because I'm marooned on a planet filled with giant hungry cephalovoidus. It's going great. Chapter 21, Do Not Get Left Behind. I've decided that common sense only takes you so far in life. For me, that's a clearing on the outskirts of a bioluminescent forest in the Bermuda tetrahedron. Here, the scorch marks from the Helios' engines vents cool. Aid and I wander into the clearing. I'm numb as I find my smiley face stress ball, nudge it with a foot before picking it up and giving it a squeeze. Is this what shock feels like? I think I'm in shock. What lie did Lynn tell the crew so that they'd leave us behind? Lynn's identical to Solus. He could have easily impersonated the captain and tricked them into jumping planet. Maybe he told them he was too late to save their CSO from being eaten by a slizzard. It wouldn't have been a hard sell. Will they be safe with Lynn? I don't even want to think about that. I can't do anything from here. I can't even save myself. You don't happen to have a holocom in there, do you? Aid shakes his head. Aid. Damn, that would have been useful. I step away and scream into the void. Flopping back into some roots beside a boxy IC, I stare at the ink-blot sky. My visor's warnings have suit lifespan reduced to 12 hours. The whiffs of Planet Junior's rotten egg smell are getting stronger and burn my nose, signaling auto repairs continuing to fail. Will my suit fail first? Or maybe a senior would be so kind as to swallow me whole. Okay, good. I feel something again. Too bad it's unilateral terror. Earlier with Lynn, I'd been prepared to accept my fate, but now, Solus needs me. Slapping my helmet, I try to focus. There's got to be something I can do. But where do I go from here? It's been so long since I've been truly alone. The Helios always has someone causing mischief. Solus with some bit of wisdom on how not to give up. Lester would have some crazy idea involving the seniors, no doubt. Natasha's idea would definitely involve an absurd amount of explosives. And certainly Qual would have unleashed some new invention upon this unsuspecting world. From atop the IC, Aid leans over me. I was so close, Aid. If I just noticed this lizard sooner, we'd be on our way to Roxy as planned. I would have been able to accept the boss's offer, buy the Helios, find somewhere safe for Lynn, somewhere he could have gotten treatment. But now, the crew is... Solace is... I clench my hands together and give my stress ball a squeeze before stuffing it into my belt's pouch. Aid pokes me with a metal leg, and I wave it away. Don't bother me. I'm busy contemplating the end. Contemplating the end? My own voice echoes back, and Beastie materializes beside me. Beastie. Beastie. I throw my arms around his neck. You're here. Why are you here? Did you get left behind too? He chirps as the soulstone in his head glows a brilliant but cold violet. How on earth is he alive without a suit? Not that we had a beastie-sized spacesuit, but my mind spins. His ethereal nature or the soulstone itself must be helping him. Either way, if he's fazed by the environment, he's not showing it. Wish I had that level of adaptability. Aid jumps off the IC and circles Beastie excitedly, no doubt very happy to capture the fact that the special animal from Dumirage is not in enemy hands. So much for my promise to Natasha. After all the life and death situations, I really couldn't care less about Aquila's plans. Well, any ideas, gang? I asked my fellow maroon companions. Beastie cocks his head to one side. Aid pauses, reporting. We're stuck on this planet. Nobody has a holocom, and while you two are good with this atmosphere, I'm not going to last much longer. Aid raises a metal leg and swivels his eye back and forth. What is it? I'd actually not been expecting an answer. Aid's bright red light shoots out from the lens and displays a halo recording. Aid's viewpoint from the ground, from beneath tree roots. It's the nesting ground, complete with prowling seniors. The viewpoint changes to focus on an egg-covered ziggurat, but from a new angle. Embedded at the top and half-covered in senior dung is the metallic sheen of a resonator. A suck and a breath. As I learned from Natasha, where there's a resonator, there's a way to send a universal beacon. That might be the only signal that'll penetrate the tetrahedron's weirdness. If the Helios crew see it, will they know to come back for me? I'm not going to get to the resonator. Normally, I'd have my crew and my gear at my back. Now all I have is a semi-trustworthy robot and a hungry spirit beast. That's not entirely true. I purse my lips as I look around the crash site. ICs lay scattered across the clearing. If I could harness the dangers inside those containers, every instinct that says that this can only end poorly. But what do I have left to lose? I think we're going to have to get a little creative. And that's as much as I'm going to leave time for on that. If you enjoyed this reading or the humor therein, there is a short story you can sign up for. And you get it for free if you sign up for my newsletter. Thank you all for listening.
And yes, indeed, we enjoyed the reading and the humor therein. And I know everybody will be signing up right now while we get ready to move to our fifth reader. Take this breath to click on the giveaway link and have it up there so that by the end, all you have to do is finish filling it out. It's okay. In the intervening period, right now, we're moving on now to our fifth reader, who is S.J. Lee. S.J. Lee is the author of the speculative fiction Altered Earth series. She is a Foreign Service specialist and diplomat and has worked and lived in Iraq, Mexico, Chile, India, Brazil, and Guyana. She currently resides in the Washington, D.C. area with her spouse and rescued street dog. So with that, S.J. Lee, you now have the platform.
Thank you. I'll be reading from book 1 of the trilogy series, Altered Earth, and which will be completed. It will be the third book is coming out February 24th. 2026, so soon. All right. Kai gasped, then stepped forward, but Krill put his hand behind his back, fingers splayed. Hold. It was the right call. Sam could see 4 other figures further down, walking in their direction. They were coming from the bridge, another body dragged between them. Sam caught more movement in the corner of her eye behind the Marines. She turned her head only slightly as to not attract attention. 2 young adults were trying to sneak up behind Echo. It'd be 12 against 9. With UMF's armor and high-caliber weapons, the Marines had better odds, but it was too early for trouble. Matam was just beyond this group. Sam could make out the perimeter wall and the people that milled around. She glanced at Scott over her shoulder, and they shared a look. She knew he had also detected the flanking individuals. They slowly angled their bodies to face outward. As per their usual routine, built out of years working together, Sam knew if anything happened, she would handle the male on her left and Scott the other. Can we help you? Shrew asked. We're on our way to Matam, Krill said. The altered man in front of her groaned, and Sam stole a glance to the side and down. The man was bloody and raw, skin missing all over his body from the grit and ground. Bull kicked him in his ribs, and the altered grunted. Kai inched forward again. Shrew squinted and examined the Marines. ¿Qué tenemos aquí? The Karenite's voice became a nasal hiss. Her eyes raked over the others, Scott, then Sam. You are not from Timunco. Too pretty for Timunco. Eyes widened, then narrowed again as another member whispered into her ear. Que interesante. So why are command Marines out here, so far away from home? So much for blending in. Sam didn't have high expectations, but still. We don't want any trouble, Krill said. Nem nos, Shrew snorted. The men behind her echoed in soft snickers. You still have not answered my question. Are all you grunts as stupido? The gang's laughter grew. Sam's fingers rubbed against the stock of her rifle. She was a bit taken back by the audacity and outright confidence of the gang. The Karenites here were different from what she and her brother were used to. She checked on the 2 individuals who had wrapped around behind them. They had stopped approximately 10 meters back from her and Scott, leaning against the fence. One, sinisterly handsome, picked out his fingernails. What did he do? Krill motioned at the altered man, who was now watching Echo, slowly blinking those strange, multicolored eyes. What did they do? He corrected, as the 4 others stopped shortly behind the gang with their own package. The other body was smaller than the first altered, but just as bloody, a boy no older than Junpei. Without the obvious difference in eye coloration, the 2 victims were indistinguishable from any other human. They bled and probably felt pain, like humans. They were not exempt from violence, like humans. Just digging out ratas. There's a constant infestation here. No help from you grunts. She spat on the altered man with the last word. Kai snarled under her breath. 6-1. Terrorist filth. Sam gripped her rifle. She was grateful Kai at least had the tact to whisper it. The Karenites heard her. What'd you say? Sam's stomach sank. One of the flanking men behind them loped onto the road, somehow much closer than she had last checked. A rusty pistol raised at Kai in an outstretched hand, a dirty finger twitching dangerously over the trigger. The Karenite junkie wore a disheveled shirt and ripped pants that hung off his bony skeleton. Thick, gnarled hair covered his head like a mop, and red marks gouged his neck. Scott already had his weapon up and pointed at the man, the tip of its barrel only a couple of meters from his target. Sam mirrored her brother, holding her sights on the other male, who had hiked up his shirt to reveal the butt of a large sidearm in the waistline of his pants. He, unlike the other, continued to lean carelessly against the fence. One hand picked at its fingernails while the other pulled a long finger across his cheek and stared flatly at Sam. A pink tongue flickered out to wet his lips. She could hear the gang, now behind her, pulling out their own weapons. She figured it was a mix of blades, clubs, and additional small firearms from their sounds. Someone thumped theirs against an open palm, probably both. She recognized the sound of a few pistol hammers cocking. Sam's shoulders stretched and protested at her upraised position, but she ignored it. The man holding his gun on Kai opened his mouth and flicked a tongue out between his surprisingly straight yet yellowing teeth. He took a step closer to Scott, as if daring him to pull the trigger first. Her brother didn't waver. Back up, Sam growled. It was easier to ignore the lumbering pain in her arm as her pulse quickened. She swung her barrel, adjusting slightly to aim at the man and then to the other, who still lingered back. The man's eyes were black, his pupils oily and wide. Junkie. Fucking junkie. Just wanted to hear what the little Zora said. His hand shook and his lips twitched. It was a standoff. The Marines were better armed, but they were also 9-12, sandwiched in the middle. Sam knew she could easily take down her target, but it was still too high a risk. Echo wasn't in a good spot. Saving 2 altered farmers wasn't their mission. The children of Karen were, but not in the situation. Shrew crowed. We really gonna do this? She sounded entertained, almost excited. The junkie crept forward again, reckless. Back the fuck up, Sam gritted out. She heard Krill call up behind her. How do you see this going? What, you shoot us, we shoot back? He paused, but no one responded. You shoot, and Command will only send more of us. You want that? It was a bluff. UMF Command was preoccupied with the summit and its preparations. They had only sent 8 SOG Marines to deal with whatever clusterfuck was happening in the south, but the Karenites didn't need to know that. With a quick flick of her eyes, Sam could see the entire team, except for Krill, had their weapons in a high-ready position, their weapon stocks drawn into their shoulders, barrels up. Maybe have your people stop pointing their weapons at mine, Krill encouraged. As Shrew and the Karenites considered the situation, the junkies' teeth clicked against each other in the whole lull. The afternoon sun blazed at Sam's skin and a breeze tugged at her hair. A bead of sweat dropped in a line down the side of her face and her heart boomed in her chest steadily, a little elevated, but still very much in control. Her breath was even. This wasn't her first standoff, and it wouldn't be her last. Basta, the gang leader finally commanded. As the other weapons lowered, Sam watched her team cautiously lower their own muzzles as well. She and Scott continued to hold theirs on the junkie in front of them, the initial and last remaining Karenite still with a raised gun. Flaco, déjalo. The man gnashed his teeth, flashing both rows at Scott and then her like a mad animal. He punched his weapon out again, his grip so tight his hand shook, fingers still dangerously on the trigger. Flaco then pulled the gun back and scratched his head with a slide. He spat a dark gob to the side and narrowed his eyes into thin slits. Sam and Scott carefully brought their weapons to a low-ready position, muzzles at a downward angle, the rifle stock still in the nooks of their shoulders. The other male remained leaning in the same position against the fence. His dark eyes never left Sam during the ordeal, and she felt a crawling sensation over her skin now. It was unlike the strong repulsion she felt with Flaco. She felt violated in the way he fixated on her. Creep. Are we good? The gang leader shrilled. Sam heard someone, a Marine, behind her inhale sharply, then exhale. She heard Yuri say the team lead's name, hesitant and warning. What did they do? Flaco snarled, but didn't raise his pistol. He was twitching, still amped up. Is it your business? Shrew said. Krill gave no response. Sam fought the urge to twist around and see what was happening. A hoarse cackle whipped into her ears. You have no authority over us. UMF did, however. Their authority did not seem to mean the same thing in certain regions, the South included. Sam knew arguing with this drugged-up Karenite gang wasn't worth it. It'd fall on deaf ears. She knew that Echo Lead knew it too. Krill, they'll kill them, Kai murmured loudly. Sam shot a glance over her shoulder. You an alt lover, puta? Flaco vehemently spat out. The blood in Sam's vein iced at her mistake. As she turned her attention back to him, Flaco lunged forward and whipped up a pistol, pointing past Sam. Sam lifted her carbine, neglecting the dull knives in her shoulder, but it was too late. Reaction against action was always too late. Motion blurred in Sam's peripheral vision, but her focus was on the man's finger on the thin metal trigger. A deafening shot cracked out. I did not read this very well. My audiobook narrator is fantastic, and I'm doing a giveaway. I have Savannah Gilmore is my audiobook narrator, and she does an amazing job at this. It's just amazing. So she'll be doing all 3 books. Go ahead for the giveaway. I am giving a code for either US or UK. Thanks for having me.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful. And I mean, I'll wait to the Q&A session because I got so many questions based on your background about the writing and the story and the action that you have in it. But I guess in the meantime, we're moving to our last reader tonight, who is Melissa Olthoff. Melissa Olthoff writes science fiction, fantasy, adventure, romance with plenty of banter and heart. She has written in both shared worlds and her own universes, and through the power of caffeine and friendship, manages to juggle chaos on and off the page. So, Melissa, you're bringing it up right now. You are, what do you call them? And racing, our final person, our what you call it, man?
I know what you're talking about. I don't know the right term.
You know, my brain is going soggy, but yes, you're that guy, that person. Do that thing.
I'm that guy. I got you. Okay, there was no need for prep. We are just going to dive right in. Every cadet wanted to be a dragon rider, right up until they were hanging upside down from the saddle 1,000 feet in the air. But I just tightened my grip and grinned. Silver wings flared wide an instant before the instructor dragon threw himself into another snap roll. The sky and ground spun in a dizzying whirl. Without pause, wings tucked in tight, a gray nose pointed straight down, and we flipped into a dive toward the ground so very far below. The wind was in my face, my heart was pounding, and I was fairly certain I'd left my stomach several hundred feet up in the air. And I loved every second of it. We leveled off barely 200 feet above the ground and were blazing along so fast the trees were nothing more than a green blur. Seated directly behind me, the instructor dragon rider shouted something lost to the wind and tapped my leg to confirm I was able to continue with the next phase of maneuvering. Just as I had every time, I tapped his leg in immediate acknowledgement, slightly harder than necessary in my enthusiasm. I wanted to scream, "Go, go, go," but that wouldn't be professional. As a third-year military cadet at the Tennyson Bonded Training Academy, I'd have to keep my excited screaming internal. It helped that I truly had no breath for screaming anything. The saddle and leather straps wrapped around legs and hips did a lot to secure us, but it wasn't enough. Legs had to grip, core muscles constantly flexed, and body position was critical. Flying was a whole body workout at the easiest of times. A defensive aerobatics check ride was not one of those times. Great wings beat hard to increase our speed, and I sharpened my focus. While I knew and had trained to every maneuver, the order was entirely up to the instructor. From this low of an altitude, there were two types of simulated threats Gregor, the instructor dragon, could react to, one from above or one from below. Since Savinia's anti-air artillery had taken out more Tennyson dragons than anything else, and we'd already covered an airborne threat response. Sure enough, Gregor abruptly pulled up and arced back, turning all that speed into an inverted loop. For 2 seconds, an eternity, those leather straps were the only thing keeping us in the saddle, because legs could only do so much. And then Gregor rolled upright, facing the opposite direction in a textbook Immelman turn, and I remembered how to breathe. Without giving my heart rate a chance to slow, the gray dragon dipped and swerved in an unpredictable pattern, sometimes dropping low enough that the wind of our passage tossed the treetops, other times catching thermals to balloon several hundred feet higher in seconds. My spine flexed, and my hands rested lightly on leathery gray hide. Every bit of my skill needed to move with the dragon. The next time the instructor tapped my leg, it was just a little harder, a subtle warning that the next phase was the final and hardest of the check ride. I'd proven I could ride. Now I had to prove I could ride and maintain situational awareness. That meant I had to keep my head on a swivel, calling the threats our dragons couldn't see, all while keeping my seat in the most physically demanding phase of flight. Without hesitation, I tapped the instructor's leg back and scanned for threats. Left, clear. Right, clear. Up. As clear as I could tell with the sun directly overhead, half blinding me. Left and down, a flash of light in the trees. Contact, 9 o'clock low, I bellowed. In response, Gregor unleashed a harsh roar scream. I felt as much as heard the ear-piercing cry, and if I hadn't known it was part of the check ride, I would have thought the alarm in his voice real. I clamped my legs tight an instant before he jinked to the right to avoid the simulated ground fire. Gregor jinked again, and the breath exploded from my lungs as my core tightened to compensate. Another dodge, another lost breath, but I didn't falter. Not even when he slipped sideways and we dropped down to just above the trees. Suddenly, we were the last place a dragon rider wanted to be, low and slow. Gregor could either go for speed or altitude to escape, not both. Wings flared wide an instant before he pitched his nose up and fought for altitude. It wasn't smooth or graceful. The big dragon beat the sky into submission through sheer determination on fragile wings. It was like trying to ride a bucking horse going straight up. But 3 years at the academy had conditioned my muscles to handle it. I leaned forward, my seat balanced and my body hugged tight to his neck, and caught his rhythm. A friendly thermal boosted us higher, and our flight smoothed out. Now several thousand feet above ground level and out of range of even the biggest dragon lance, Gregor relaxed. The tension eased from my shoulders, and I waited for the instructor to tap my leg a final time, signaling the end of the check ride. Except he didn't. Almost frantically, I scanned the skies and the ground below. When I found nothing, my gut twisted. I should have looked up first. Squinting against the brilliant sunlight and wishing my goggles were tinted, I searched the flawless blue skies above and caught a flash of red where there shouldn't be any. Contact 12 o'clock high. My scream warning gave Gregor just enough time to react. As the red dragon dropped down on us from out of the sun, the gray tilted on one wing and side slipped out of his path. Red wings flashed past, the world tilted sideways, and all of my weight went to my right leg. Leather straps creaked, but I managed to keep my boot tucked into the indentation that served as a stirrup and held my position despite the strain. The enemy dragon spiraled up on a thermal with a friendly roar and was quickly out of sight, either returning to the academy or getting ready to ambush another student. I certainly wasn't the only cadet out on a check ride today. And then came the final tap on the leg I'd been waiting for. My check ride was over. The only question was whether I'd passed. As Gregor looped back toward the academy in a wide turn, the sunlight played across my face. For all that I hadn't paid much attention, the early autumn day really was gorgeous. Warm, sunny, with small puffy clouds scattered across the sky. It was absolutely perfect flying weather. But I was far too distracted replaying the check ride to get lost in the wind. Every maneuver, every time my seat wasn't flawless, my near failure to spot the final threat. It all played on an endless loop in my mind. I had to pass to advance, had to score well to keep my ranking high, but it wasn't just about Academy rankings. The Savinians had dragons of their own, and worse, and we had to train to meet that threat. The fact that it was fun was irrelevant, because after I bonded a dragon of my own and graduated to active duty, those defensive maneuvers I'd just been graded on would mean the difference between surviving or not. In an effort to distract myself, I leaned over slightly and picked out ground reference points as we flew along at a leisurely pace. The refresher would be useful since I was double turning today and would be back out on a different dragon this evening. There to the north, the Griffin Rider training grounds where they practiced scouting and patrol riding. Cadets who weren't quite as good in their first 2 years of the academy bonded to griffins instead of dragons. A flash of feathers drew my gaze to a pair of griffins spiraling higher above the training grounds. It looked like they were playing. Dismissing them, I turned to the right and picked out the strange tower spearing into the sky, an easy waypoint on any of the southern routes. Unlike our current materials, whatever the tower was made of didn't rust, a pre-war relic from another time when we had the power to do amazing things. A glint of sunlight on metal, a lot of metal, drew my gaze east, the last reference point until the academy itself. Anti-air emplacements, placed at every cardinal point around the academy grounds. Great Carew-served ballistae armed with dragon lances, because when the enemy had dragons of their own, no place was truly safe, no matter how far from the front lines. Gregor beat his wings and my core tightened as he sideslipped into another thermal. We rose several hundred feet higher in a matter of seconds, and a grin pulled at my lips as the academy finally came into sight. 3 years as a cadet, and I never got tired of seeing it from the air. And that is all you guys get. But I am going to give away 3 copies for the giveaway, and I hope you enjoyed it. You can also get a free short story on my website, and there is a free short story on Baden.com. It's called This Means War, and it is a prequel to this novel.
All right, that was magnificent. It felt as if we were flying along with you, in the air. And then again, now I'm always interested in things like hierarchies when you speak in terms of dragons and griffins. How does this all work out? All those things are always of interest to me in stories, the whole world building. But again, we get to ask you those questions during the Q&A session. Don't forget, as Melissa and others have said, they have giveaways. I posted the giveaway link many times in the chat. So, go back through it, look for it, link to it now so that you'll be able to, get your mitts on some of these wonderful short stories and possible books that these wonderful authors have been providing for us. At this juncture now, we are coming to the conclusion of our program. Thanks so much for everyone who came by today.